So in this video, I'm talking to you about blockages in pipework, which I'm coming across more and more as our central heating systems become older and older. The systems I'm talking about are traditional systems where you have that large hot water tank and you have a feed and expansion tank up in the loft. And the blocked bit of pipework which I'm talking about is where the feed and expansion pipe connects onto our central heating system. And that blockage is very common. So it's one of the first places I would check for a blockage in the heating system. So if, for instance, your radiators downstairs, they aren't getting very hot, or maybe you have to keep bleeding the radiators, or maybe you can hear water trickling through the central heating system. Maybe the boiler is clicking on and off all the time, or it's overheating. All of these symptoms can be down to a blockage or poor flow around our central heating system, and I'm going to cover both of these in this video. Now, a lot of central heating systems were fitted in the 60s, 70s and 80s. So those systems will be coming up to being 60 years old. Now, I like to compare a lot of plumbing work to cars, and you don't see many people driving around in 60-year-old cars. Now, most of us pay very little attention to our central heating systems. It's just that white box in the corner and those white panels on the walls. And yet our central heating system is one of the most important things in our lives and houses because it gives us hot water and it keeps us warm. And yet we do virtually nothing with them. And in general, if there's a problem, we just fix them up because it's far too expensive to replace the entire system. And that's exactly what I'm doing on this job. I'm removing a blockage from the pipework, fixing the system up and getting it running again. This property was built in the 80s, so the system is about 40 years old. To carry out this work, we're going to need to drain our central heating system. Now, I haven't covered draining in this video, but I have made a couple of other videos on how to go about draining a system and problems you'll find when draining a system. And I'll leave those linked in the cards above now, and you'll also find them down in the description. Also down in the description, you'll find lots of other really helpful videos all about your central heating system, how to make it more efficient, change radiator valves without even draining a system. So do check those videos out. And finally, at the end of the video, I'm going to cut that bit of pipework up and show you the blockage in more detail and why it occurs there and why there is all this red rust. So do try and stick around to the end of the video to find out about that. Right, now let me show you this blockage. I'm looking into the airing cupboard of this property, which was built around 1985. And the pipework in the airing cupboard here is all original, along with the pump. Now, this is a big 5-bedroomed house, and the radiators downstairs are just getting lukewarm. Now, the heating system is running right now, and I can hear trickling water, and the pump does not sound at all happy. It was difficult to record the sound, but it's definitely there. Now, I am fairly sure that I am going to find that the feed pipe to the central heating system that comes from a loft tank, that's this pipe here, is going to be blocked up. Now, this is a very common problem on an older traditional system where you have that loft tank which feeds the central heating system. So on this system, there is a gate valve which allows me to close the feed pipe to the central heating system so I can drain this system down now. Because I'm going to need to dismantle all that pipework where the open vent and the feed pipe connect onto the central heating system. And I'm also going to change the pump. And here's that feed and expansion pipe running down, and you'll find that it connects onto the system with a T just before the pump. If you don't have a gate valve to isolate your loft tank, you're going to need to find your loft tank and either isolate the water going into the tank or tie up the float valve, which I think is the easiest and the safest option. Because if you use an isolation valve, there's always the chance that it might start leaking. And then that's something else you have to fix. And of course, we need to isolate the loft tank, otherwise it's just going to keep refilling the system as we drain it down. Now, I've got this loft tank bunged up and capped off to prevent the water going into the central heating system. And I wanted to show you that it is full of all this weird gooey stuff. So it's a really good idea before you actually start draining, go and check your loft tank and give it a good clean out to stop anything that may be in the loft tank running down through your central heating system, which may give you more problems. And there we go, the tank's nice and clean. Now we need to drain the system down so we can cut out the blocked pipework. Again, I'm not covering that in this video, but I made a couple of videos about problems with drain valves and how to go about draining your system down if you haven't got a drain valve. I'm now going to switch off the power to the central heating system because we don't want anything running or anything to be live whilst I'm working on it. So there we go, switch off the main switch and then remove the fuse. I'm now safe to work on the system. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the electrical connection from the pump. So remove the cover and disconnect the wires. So I think there's water going to be still inside this part of the system, so I'm just going to take this fitting here apart and then use my water vacuum to catch any water that might come out. So just loosen off the nut, pull the fitting apart and catch the water. And there we go, there's the last bits of water coming out of this bit of pipework. Now I'm going to use my junior hacksaw and cut through this bit of 22mm pipework. And there we go, I've now cut through that bit of 22mm tube. Now I wanted to show you this pipe connection here. It looks like it's been leaking. So I'm going to cut this 15mm bypass and remove that tube and remake that joint. And I'll show you what I find in just a couple of minutes. I can use my water vacuum and suck out any water that might be in the cylinder coils. And now use my 15mm pipe slice and cut through that feed pipe coming from the loft tank. I also need to cut through this open vent pipe, which connects onto the air separator. I use my junior hacksaw again to cut through the pipe which is joined onto the air separator itself. I can now lift the pump valves, the feed pipe and the air separator out in one. Let's take a look at what I found inside this air separator. Well, there's no black magnetite, but it is covered in red rust, which is very bad. And if we take a look inside the feed pipe, you can see again there's a lot of red rust and the pipe is virtually blocked up. There's a tiny little hole which water has been flowing up and down, and that is no good at all. Now I did actually take this bit of pipework home. I wanted to cut it open and see how badly blocked it actually was. And it was really blocked up. I'll show you the whole lot being cut open at the end of the video. And I'll explain what this red rust actually means. So try and stick around for that. Before you go chopping up your pipework, it's a good idea to take the head off your pump and check the impeller to see if that's blocked up. Now this impeller here, you can see when we look down inside it, we can see every vein has got magnetite blocking it up. So although the pump will be running and spinning, there's going to be virtually no water flow. Now I spent some time with a thin screwdriver just cleaning this pump out because this particular pump is on a sealed system, so there is no feed pipe. But we had exactly the same symptoms again, boiler not being very happy and radiators and hot water not getting very hot. And you can see now I've cleaned this pump out and it looks completely different. So I'll fit it back onto the pump body. I'm now going to use my water vacuum to check that the feed pipe is not blocked and it lets water flow down it without any problem. And you can see there I've got water flowing out to that feed pipe, so I'm happy that the rest of it isn't blocked. And just to let you know, the rest of the pipe doesn't usually become blocked. It's literally only where the feed pipe joins onto the central heating system. Now I'm using my blowtorch and I'm trying to get this piece of pipe out of the end of this 28mm elbow. Using a pair of adjustable spanners, I can grip the pipe, gently wiggle it and pull the piece of pipe out of the elbow. Now I'm using a wire brush to clean the other end of the fitting because I need to make sure that this joint is still good. I've now got a new piece of 28mm tube and I'm just applying a bit of Everflux to it. I'm going to smear a little bit on the inside of the fitting, although that is not recommended because it's an old fitting and I can't afford it to leak. So I heat up the fitting and then gently insert the copper pipe into the elbow. I'm now going to apply some more heat and solder the fitting up. You can see the solder there melting on the top, and that's going to gradually roll around the pipe and then get drawn into the fitting by capillary action. And as usual, there goes the good old smoke alarm. Apply a bit more heat to the other end of the fitting and make sure that this joint here is still good by applying some more solder. Happy with both those joints, clean it off with a damp rag. Then I use my inspection mirror to check my work. And I'm happy that this elbow is soldered up fine. Now I need to clean the paintwork off this open vent pipe, and I do that by heating it up with my blowtorch, and then I get my wire brush again and scrub it off. You can see how the paint is beginning to burn there, and now I can get my wire brush and scrub it all off. And I found this is the easiest way to remove paintwork off your copper pipes. Although you have to be careful in case you got old paintwork which might contain lead. After I got the worst of the paintwork off, I use an emery strip to polish the pipe up. Quick inspection all the way around, and that pipe is as good as new. I've started making up a 28mm T to become the new open vent pipe connection. I'm using a 28mm pipe slice to trim back the piece of pipe I've just soldered into the elbow. Give it a clean, apply some flux, and fit the T. Apply some flux, fit the coupling, attach the open vent pipe and solder it up. And there we go, that's that section now rebuilt and completed. Now I'm working on the feed pipe. You can see I've got that pretty much fully built up now. With the solder knot set, I use an adjustable spanner to push the two T's completely together. A little bit more soldering and I think we are good to go. Happy with all that, I can now use my inspection mirror and just double check it all over. What I'm looking for is a good solder ring all the way around the fitting. Now I'm going to work on this flow pipe which goes into the mid position valve. Give it a good old clean off and a good polish. If you need to remove old olives from pipework, then again I've made a video 5 ways to remove an olive. Now I wanted to show you this bypass pipe here which has got some watermarks around the fitting. And I heated it up and it pulled straight out. Now hopefully you can see there that the solder on this pipe is dull. It's not shiny, freshly melted solder, meaning it was never properly soldered at all. So it was a case of cleaning up inside the actual fitting, making sure that was nice and shiny, and then soldering in a new piece of 15mm tube. And there we go, that's now done. I can now fit the brand new UPS3 Grunfos pump. Now this is a 28mm pump gate valve, and I'm using joining compound to seal the compression fitting. On the top of the pump there's a 22mm pump gate valve. Now I'm using joining compound and I'm using the method which I use 99% of the time to seal my compression fittings because I don't want any leaks. If you'd like to know a little more about compression fittings and how to make them up, then I made a video all about how to make up compression fittings, all the different ways to do it, and I'll leave that video linked in the cards above now. So I'm doing my final bit of soldering here, and you can see I've got some cloths wrapped around the pipes. That's to stop the flux from running down the pipe and into my compression fittings. Final inspection, and I'm happy with all the fittings. Now I use a couple of adjustable spanners to do up the compression fittings on the pump valves, and then do up the union nuts onto the pump. Make sure both the pump valves are fully open, which they are. Now this next part is going to be a point of contention. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. So, system bypasses. Just before I go on to the subject of bypasses, I want to very quickly introduce myself. My name is Mark Ballard and I've been a gas registered engineer for over 30 years. The aim of my channel is to help you with your gas boilers and your central heating. If you find this video at all useful, then please give me a little bit of feedback by clicking on the old thumbs up and subscribe. That will help others to find the video, and of course share it with anyone else who may be interested. If you visit my website, I have categorized all my videos and products and parts that I recommend so you can easily find what you're looking for. And I'd like to say a really big thank you to everybody who's bought me a cup of coffee and left me a donation in my Toolbox fund. It's really appreciated and it does really help me to make more videos which will hopefully help you. Now I'm doing up the compression fittings on the gate valve which is on the bypass. Right from the start I'm going to tell you that this gate valve will be fully closed and the handle will be removed to stop it from being tampered with. Now in general I only use the bypass on a mid-position valve system to help me fill the system. Now I feel this needs a little more explanation. Manual bypasses and automatic bypasses are quite a technical part of the central heating system. and whether they are needed or how they should be set is going to be down to what boiler you have, what controls you have on the radiators, and whether you've got zone valves or a mid-position valve. Now, it is advised to install automatic bypasses on traditional systems, whether it's a mid-position valve system like this one, or whether it's a zone valve system like this one. Now, if you have zone valves, you will normally have an automatic bypass. The reason for this is that when both the zone valves close, there's nowhere for the water to flow, meaning that your boiler may be on and running, and then suddenly it is off and the water stops flowing. The residual heat in the boiler then may make it overheat and trip out with an overheat fault. Having said all that, if you've got an old cast iron boiler, then you probably won't have a bypass at all, which is usually absolutely fine on older systems and boilers. Now, this system is a mid-position valve, and with a mid-position valve, there should never be a time when any part of the circuit is closed, and so water can always flow around the system, no matter what position the valve is in. Now, this does depend on the circumstances of the actual system. For instance, if you had thermostatic radiator valves on every radiator, then you would want a bypass. But it's not recommended to have thermostats on every radiator. You should always have one radiator which is open circuit. And that would be a control radiator, usually in the hallway or possibly bathroom. An auto bypass may be needed if you get system noise. So if all your thermostats are closing down, then you may hear noise of water going through your system. And then an auto bypass can reduce that. Now, auto bypasses can waste energy if they're not set correctly or if they become faulty. And on this job here, I was replacing the auto bypass because it had become faulty and the homeowner's radiators just weren't getting very hot. A very similar issue to the blockage in the pipework, poor flow around the system. A quick explanation of this is if it opens too early or if it becomes faulty, then water which is coming from your boiler will go straight through the bypass and back to the boiler and not go around the system, which is obviously really inefficient. Anyway, that's enough about bypasses. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Right, back to this blockage. I've also fitted a new automatic air vent. Again, that will help fill in the system. So now I'm going to fill the system and check for leaks. After I check for leaks, I'll then flush the system out to remove any flux from the system. And then I can add some inhibitor to keep the system running smoothly and stop corrosion. And of course, I can tell you that there were no leaks. Just going to make sure that the cap is open on the automatic air vent. And I can now wire up the electrical plug on the pump. Plug it into the pump. One of the things I dislike about this new Grunfos pump is the lead sticks out sideways from the pump. And you can see it can just be awkward, just be in the wrong position. And there we go, switch on the power, and now we can see the pump is running from the flickering lights we can see on the front there. And like I said, close the manual bypass and remove the handle so it cannot be accidentally opened up. Now we can adjust the pump speed by pressing the button on the front of the pump. You can see the lights change, so 3 lights is full power. So there we go, that's another full morning's work. I've got a happy homeowner, because now all the radiators downstairs have started getting nice and hot. And the trickling sound inside the airing cupboard has now gone, because there's no more air being sucked into the system. If you wanted to save a little bit of energy, you could lag all these pipes in here with insulation. But anyway, that's another good job done. Let me know in the comments what you've come across on your own heating systems. Now, as promised, I'm back at home now and I've got that bit of pipework in the vise and I'm cutting it open to see what we will find. And as I suspected, they are virtually fully blocked with magnetite and rust. So why are we getting all this magnetite and rust build up where the feed and expansion pipe connects onto the system? Now, as I understand it, it's for a number of reasons. At this point, we can get fresh water, which will contain fresh oxygen, entering the system. And our radiators are made out of steel. Water and oxygen on steel will create rust, which over time turns into that black stuff we call magnetite. And magnetite is the enemy of your central heating system. It then flows around your system, bonding itself to anything that it touches. Fitting magnetic filters like this MagnaClean can really improve your system health. Also, where your feed pipe connects onto the system is where the water will also be at its hottest. Adding heat to that fresh water accelerates that chemical reaction, creating iron oxide, which is magnetite. Magnetite gradually builds up over years and years at the feed pipe, blocking it up. Then what happens when the pump is running, it then starts sucking air back down the open vent pipe. Now the open vent pipe is a safety pipe to release any excess pressure within the system. That air which is being drawn in obviously contains fresh oxygen. That fresh oxygen then gets pumped around your system, creating more corrosion, creating more iron oxide, turning into magnetite, which then blocks the pipes up even more. Now on this system, all the pipes are covered in red rust. That means it's fresh rust. That's because the system has got to a point now where it is continuously sucking in air. That air is continuously going around the system, creating more rust. So it's an endless cycle of air being drawn in, rust being created, blocking up the pipes even more, which then means that more air gets pulled in. And so the cycle continues until water can no longer flow around the system. And you can see that this system has got to that point where the water is virtually no longer flowing around the system. And of course, it's rusting away the radiators. And if it got too bad, they would need to be replaced because they would start leaking, because they've been rusted away from the inside. So if you can hear air trickling around your system, or your boiler keeps overheating, or maybe the boiler doesn't stay running for very long before it shuts off again, radiator's not getting hot, your hot water may not be getting hot, all those are symptoms of poor flow around your system, which may be because of a blocked feed pipe, or possibly your pump. So call a heating engineer to come and take a look at your system. If you do it yourself and fix your system, let me know what you find. It's always interesting to hear your comments. Right, that's about it then. So I do hope this video has been helpful to you. If you want to watch my video on the other blockage which I covered, you can click on the link just there. If you want to know how to replace a radiator valve without even draining your system, you can click on that link just there. And as usual, please give me a little bit of feedback by clicking on the old thumbs up, subscribe, share it with anyone who may be interested, and a cup of coffee in my toolbox fund is always really appreciated. Bye for now, and I hope to see you in the next video.